what's up, everybody? The Miami Dolphins are, as the title says, are in absolute meltdown mode. Welcome to Three Wide Wednesdays. What's up, Vince Faithful? Thanks for joining us. Man, the frustration's been boiling over. The finger pointing has started. Right now, nobody has any answers for this. Tonight, we're joined by Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphin columnist Chris Perkins, front of the program. We're going to be breaking down everything: the locker room tension, the coaching questions, the front office future, and what's going on Stephen Ross inside his head, which that's the $1 million question, literally, or the $17 billion question, maybe. So don't go anywhere. Drop your takes in the live chat. Make sure you guys always hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment on the end of the video. Jason knows I love responding to all your takes. Now let's get into what really is going on with the Miami Dolphins, because as always, this is going to be, we're going to keep it real and raw. And as I always say, Jason knows this, we're all in this together. We ride the wave together in this thing. So enough of me yapping. Let's get to it. I got my co-host and co-pilot, as always, Mr. Jason Sarney. And as I mentioned, Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist Chris Perkins. Fellas, good evening.
What's up, man? It's good to be back with y'all. It's been too long, and it's been too many losses.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, we appreciate you, Perk. We know you're a busy guy. Tonight's been a special night for you. So let's get right into it. Maybe a couple of weeks ago, people thought it was rock bottom, but after the Cleveland Browns loss, have we seen rock bottom, or are we not yet there, Perk?
I don't think this team is there yet, quite honestly. You thought Carolina might be it, blowing that 17-0 lead. You thought the Chargers would be it, how you lost the game in the last minute. You thought Cleveland would be it, the 25-point blowout. I still think it might get lower, and we might see it this week with Bijan Robinson and Michael Penix and Drake London. I don't know. I just don't think that this team has bottomed out yet. Obviously, Steve Ross does not think the team has bottomed out yet. Because he still has Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel in there. McDaniel probably doesn't think that it's bottomed out yet. He's still got Tua in there, although he made this mysterious change at backup quarterback. What the hell's going on there? Yeah. I just don't think it's been rock bottom yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, you mentioned the backup quarterback change. That caught us out of nowhere. Did you sense that coming? Anything, or is it just Quinn? It's been better. I'm surprised because Zach was the hand-picked guy in the offseason. McDaniel said himself. Did it catch you by surprise, Bert?
Absolutely shocked. Like who makes that change and gives the explanation? I thought the number 3 rookie 7th-round pick gives us a better chance to beat this specific opponent. Like, we think that if he has to go in against Cleveland, we think he gives us a better chance than Zach Wilson. Just make the change. Just say Quinn is now our number 2 quarterback. He's performed better in practice. The whole thing about, we'll go week to week, but I hope not to prolong this decision. What is that? It just sounds like amateur hour. And I like and respect Mike McDaniel, but that explanation is weak. It is absolutely weak. Either make the change or don't make the change. But I've just never heard an explanation of, we think that the backup gives us a better chance against this specific opponent. So I think it's just another reason to have questions about this team and about this coach. We talked to both of the quarterbacks today, and they told us that they were told on Saturday when they got to the team hotel. And I don't think either of them really expected that to happen. But here we are, and let's see where it goes from here. But just a bizarre explanation for why the change was made.
Yeah, because it didn't need to really happen. Like, you didn't need to create. I guess kudos for Mike or where did that call come from? Was it Mike?
Yeah, it came from Mike McDaniel. Yeah. And so, if a change needed to be made, I agree with you, George. Congrats to Mike for actually, making the change. But the explanation, it's just bizarre. It's just a very bizarre explanation.
Yeah, I agree. That game in Cleveland, I said the fact they lost 31-6 to a team that averaged 13 points a game last in the league offensively, and even their defense. When you get in the red zone on that defense, they give at an 80% clip they were giving up. I know it's strong in the pass rush, but what surprised you most on that Cleveland game was I I didn't know the Dolphins were going to win that game. I felt uncomfortable about it, but I don't want to hear about the weather. Both teams played under it. It wasn't as bad as I thought. What surprised you most about that loss?
Just the total system collapse. You know, when Tua's talking about operational failure, you see D. Eskridge lose the kickoff return. You see Tua throwing the pick six and 3 interceptions. You see yet another team rush for over 100 yards. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching. Like, something should be there. Something should be a rock for this team. I thought going into the season, as you guys know, I was really high on the front seven. I was totally wrong about them. I totally overhyped this front seven. I thought that was going to be the rock. They still haven't come through. The run defense is still leaky. They're not putting adequate pressure on the quarterback. So, but the total system failure that we saw, again, offense, defense, special teams, coaching, that's what surprised me about the Cleveland game. You would think that they're past that there is something that this team can say, all right, we've got Achane, or we've got Waller, or we've got the front seven, or we've got Riley Patterson, or we've got Malik Washington on kickoff return. Something that's a rock that you can say every week, this is what we can count on if nothing else works. And I guess you've got Devon Achane and Patrick Paul. Patrick Paul did a very nice job against Myles Garrett, right? But that's not going to score touchdowns for you, right? That's not going to win games. It will help you win games. But I don't know how this team is going to win games moving forward. And Sunday was just another example of that. That's what surprised me in the micro and the macro, that there was nothing in that game that you could count on. There's been nothing this season that you can count on.
Yeah.
So having said that, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, having said that, there's been schools of thought, someone's got to pay for this. Let's ride this out with everybody and deal with it next year. What's your best explanation to why Mike McDaniel's still here, Chris Grier's still here, why nothing is happening? And it seems that Ross is just kind of letting it flow, status quo until the end here.
I know a couple of things about Steve Ross. Number one, he does not like cycling through coaches every 3 years. And so he's got some stability here. So he wanted to ride that out. Maybe that day has passed, but that's one thing. The other thing is he likes the unity in the building. You don't have 3 or 4 people in his ear telling them different things. There's not Don Aponte and Mike Tannenbaum and Jeff Ireland and Dennis Hickey. It's one voice, the Chris Grier voice, and everybody in that building is pulling on the same rope. So he likes that unity. So it's that he doesn't want to cycle through coaches. He likes the unity. But at some point, you've just got to recognize this thing is just not working. Mike McDaniel is a 29-29 coach in the regular season, 29-31, including his 0-2 record in the playoffs. You should not be a 500 coach with all the talent that you've had in this franchise over the last few years, since 2022, since McDaniel has been here. So, aside from those 2 reasons, I don't know why. It's rare to fire a GM in the middle of the season. That could be why Grier is still here. McDaniel, he likes the continuity and everything, but I've always said this, or I've said this for the last few weeks. I think the players will always like Mike McDaniel. I think the players will always respect Mike McDaniel, but at some point they're going to stop listening to Mike. You're 1-6. You're a 500 coach with all this talent. You haven't unlocked it yet. You haven't figured it out yet. I think the players are just going to look at him and go, I like him, but I'm not sure that I can trust him. I'm not sure I can believe what he's preaching. I think we're either at that stage or one game from that stage. We're very close to being right there.
Yeah. I just want to shout out everybody in the chat, Sammy, Tony, Lou, Daibar, Balake, Adrian, everybody in the house. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe button. If you come on over to YouTube, join us. Got any questions for Perk, hit it up in the chat. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. We're here with Chris Perkins, Miami Dolphins columnist from the Sun Sentinel, discussing the Dolphins meltdown. Good choice of words. Perk, you mentioned, the whole thing. To me, with Mike, and you bring it up, they like him, but they don't fear him at all. And I think you have to have a little bit. We've said he's a substitute teacher on here. Or when you have a boss at your job, he walks in the door, you're like, oh, crap, now I got to get to work. Or the boss Or I'll stay on my cell phone a little bit because I know this guy's not going to. You have to have guys who want to play for you, but also fear you a little bit. There's a fine line there. I think Brian Flores was too much the other way,
right,
and Mike's too much the other way. Do you think that's kind of what's going on? Is there's not a level, like you have to be able to look. It's nice to rehab Tua and make him this, you built him up, you proved it, but you got to look at, Jordan Brooks in the eye, lead him. You got to cross the line of scrimmage. Do you think that's the biggest problem with Coach McDaniel?
I think that's one of the biggest problems. And what I've always said about this team is, look, I've got 30 years of pro locker rooms, 3 years with the Texas Rangers, 10 years with the Miami Heat, 17 years with the Dolphins. There's a necessary level of paranoia that you need in pro sports. You need to have that fear, that motivating fear of, if I mess up, I'm going to lose my starting job, or worse, I'm going to get cut, right? And we remember in 2016 when Adam Gase went through, I'm trying to remember the names, Billy Turner, Dallas Thomas, and who was the third off? Jamil Douglas. And he cut them. And whether that helped turn the season around, it was at 1-4, you guys remember. And then Jay Ajayi went off the back-to-back 200-yard rushing games, and they were off and running. But I went back and I looked at my story from that day, and Brian Tannehill and Jermon Bushrod both said this sends a message that if we aren't on our job, you're going to be out of here. And I don't think that this team feels that kind of message from Mike McDaniel, that, guys consistently kept their jobs for a couple of years. Last year, when Durham Smythe got demoted and Raheem Mostert got demoted and you had David Long, that was like the first time that I think that any type of message along those lines of you either perform or else was sent by Mike McDaniel. I don't think that message is still there. I just don't think that fear, that paranoia is in that locker room. From being in that locker room all season, it's not there. And look, I love this locker room. This is one of the, and I've said this about all four McDaniel teams that I've covered, that it is one of the best locker rooms I've ever been in for us, for a journalist. There's a bunch of classy guys in there, a bunch of guys who you can just go up and talk to, but there's too many guys that you would trust to babysit your kids. There's no edge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not that you have to be a jerk or an a-hole, but you just want to see some guys that you go, yeah.
Some guys are not invited for Sunday dinner at the house.
Yeah, right.
Too many guys are invited for Sunday dinner.
You want to see like a Rashad Jones, Randy Starks, Richie Incognito, Mike Pouncey. You want an Ed Jarvis Landry. Like, you want some dudes where you're like, I'm not sure that dude is all there. Yeah. There's not enough of that in the Dolphins locker room, and there's not enough of that fear factor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So we've been known for, we call it the merry-go-round of mediocrity here. How did we go from mediocre to meltdown? Because this is different. Like, this is different. How did we get from this team that's just stuck in mediocrity, in evil place, and we went to the meltdown? Like, where did this jump? Is it to taking a few steps back? Did we overrate the talent, Bert?
I did. It's everything, because you guys know I predicted this to be a 9-win team. And I based that basically on what I had seen of this team this year in OTAs and training camp, joint practices. Even when they got their butt kicked by Detroit on day one, they came back and showed some fight on day two. We haven't seen that this season, right? That they got their butt kicked by the Colts in the opener, and they've continued to get their butts kicked. There hasn't been enough fight. I overestimated the fight. I overestimated the talent. Again, I thought the front seven was going to be a lot better. They're nothing. There's nothing to fear on that front seven. And really, I think one of the other things is that, the injuries are a factor. And I say that because at the start of training camp, I said that the backups, these are bad backups. The depth on this team is bad. I thought the depth on the offensive line specifically was the worst in the McDaniel era. And then the injuries start. Cater Kohu and Storm Duck and James Daniels and Austin Jackson. This team just wasn't good enough to absorb those injuries. It should have been but it wasn't. So it's a lot of things. I think the roster construction was poor. I think the plan to go from win now with the veterans to let's win with draftees and youth, this was a transition year, but you just didn't have enough talent stacked up so that if the inevitable injuries happen, you were able to sustain. So, I wrote a couple of weeks ago that I think that the McDaniel era is going from mediocrity to failure. If Mike McDaniel ends his Dolphins reign with a losing record, and again, he's 29-29 right now in the regular season, that's a failure. I'm trying to remember the winning percentages off the top of my head. I think Flo was like 490, maybe Sperano and Gase. Yeah, they were around 470. I think Philbin was 461.
Everybody was kind of around that 500 plus or minus a few. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can't end up only ahead of Joe Philbin. Like, you can't be behind Sperano, Philbin, Gase, or Sperano, Gase, and Flo. That's a failure. You've had the best talent this franchise has had in 2 decades, and for you to be a 500-ish coach, to me, that's a failure. So it's a bunch of reasons why this franchise this era went from mediocrity to failure. But I am very surprised that it's fallen this far, this fast, meaning 7 games, the first 7 games.
No, I couldn't agree more. We gotta lose that. How disappointing has Grant been? I want to touch on the rookie class here for a second.
Yep.
I watched the all 22. A lot of it's a lack of chemistry with Steelers too. Steelers been not good. And you see it paid up. How disappointed are you in this rookie class so far?
Oh man, I tell you, and it's been very disappointing, and especially when you look at Kenneth Grant, you could have had Tyler Warren at number 14. Grant went 13, Tyler Warren went 14. You talk about a huge miss. This is like it's like so many of the things that they've had in the past, whether you're looking at Tua and Justin Herbert or Jalen Waddle and Penei Sewell. There's just a lot of those type things. Sabai Naya. Wow, what a big miss there. Now, look, I say this, and for these 2 guys, it's only been 7 games. I'm not ready to trash either of them. It's just been a very disappointing start. We remember last year, Chop Robinson had a disappointing start, and he found himself. Maybe that happens with both of these guys. Maybe it happens with one of them. But, another one of my problems with this season was when they talked about winning with youth and draftees. Why are you trading out of the 3rd and 4th rounds then? I understand you wanted to get up there and get Sabai Naya. You could have gotten Tate Ratledge, but I understand you wanted to get Sabai Naya. But to me, if you're trying to win with youth and draftees, those 3rd and 4th round picks, that might be a starter. That might be 2 key reserves. That could be guys who contribute, especially at cornerback, when you knew that you didn't have Kendall Fuller and Jalen Ramsey was putting in a trade request. You could have gotten a cornerback in the 3rd and 4th rounds. I think there were 8 cornerbacks taken in the 3rd and 4th rounds or something like that. So, I just look at this whole season and it's just like, wow, you just scratch your head over a lot of these decisions. And so I go back to trading out of the 3rd and 4th rounds. And then you're counting on 5th round, 6th round, 7th round picks. Jason Marshall Jr. and Jordan Phillips and Zeke Biggers, and I'm not ripping those guys at all, not in any way, shape, or form. They're 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks. You can't count on them to be contributors as rookies. If they contribute, that's a bonus. But you can't go into the season thinking Jordan Phillips is going to, play some valuable snaps for us because he's a 5th round pick. So the draft strategy and the actual performance of the draft picks have both been disappointments.
I love what you said, Perk, about that draft strategy and the cornerbacks in the 3rd and 4th round. They were so plentiful.
Yes.
And that's the problem. It's like you trade out trying to be the smartest GM in the league, and then all of a sudden you neglect one of the glaring holes on the team, and look where we're at now. But we're about 20 minutes in, and it's been a while until we've actually gotten to Tua. So let's talk Tua. Could you explain? I mean, look, he hasn't looked consistently comfortable. Obviously, the turnovers are a major issue. George and I have been speculating, so have a lot of people, the hip could be degenerative. What are your thoughts of what we can really start to call a fall off right now of Tua's performance from this in this
Wow.
year?
It's a lot of things. I think that Tua probably doesn't have any faith in his pass protection. I think Tua might have some hesitance about taking a hit, knowing that, the next one could be a long-term injury or career-threatening if it's a concussion. And I think that not having Tyreek Hill there hurts him. I think that the defense's ability to shut down Darren Waller for long stretches, right? He'll go like 2 quarters, and he doesn't have a target. There's a lot of things working against Tua. Having said that, Tua's been asked this year. 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions and a lost fumble. That's 11 touchdowns and 11 turnovers. The key interceptions late in the game against New England and against Buffalo. It's hard to say that Tua is going to revive the season, that he's going to find himself, that he's going to breathe air into the lungs of this offense. I just don't see the signs. And as a matter of fact, I'm at the point where I think Steve Ross should just do a clean sweep. Next season, Greer shouldn't be here. McDaniel shouldn't be here. Tua shouldn't be here. You just take that Russell Wilson, Denver Broncos financial pain. It hasn't worked. It just has not worked. You need to start over again. And I wrote today that the rebuild should start in the trenches, because that's where your biggest draft capital of the last 2 years has gone, right? Chop Robinson, Patrick Paul, Kenneth Grant, Jonas Abayinaya. You've already got 4 guys. You have Jordan Phillips. You're bringing back Aaron Brewer and Patrick Paul. Zach Sealer is going to be back. Work on those trenches and see if you can strengthen the team there. It's a model that works. We see it with Detroit and Philly. So I just think as far as Tua, I'm sorry, the ship has sailed. I don't know that he's going to come back this season enough to where it's like, okay, keep him around next year because there's hope there that he can take you somewhere. I've said I think that you can win a Super Bowl with Tua, and I know that sounds stupid right now looking at the season that he's had, but I think that he could do some of the same things that Nick Foles did or that Jared Goff does. You've got to surround him with a lot of talent. That he won't be the number one reason that you win a Super Bowl or that you win a playoff game, but I do think he's good enough. He is a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He's not shown that this year at all, but overall, under McDaniel, he did show that. I fault the team for not understanding what they had and not surrounding him with better talent.
Yeah, speaking of Tua, I'm glad you mentioned that, the contract. Like, everybody's saying, look, I agree with you. Sometimes you got to take let's look at Perkins. His cap hit next year is $56 million.
Yep.
His pre-June 1st release, the dead cap would be $99 million.
Yep.
A trade pre-June 1st, 45 dead cap. Post June 1st release, which I don't see a scenario where that happens, is $67 million in dead cap and 26. They kind of spread it out in 31 million in 2027. So that 99 million gets kind of spread out a little more, and then a post June 1st trade dead cap at 13 million and 31 million. It's a lot of money to take, but sometimes you just got to move on, Perk. And I don't disagree with you. How realistic? We'll get percentages on who we think is coming back next year. We'll see that for the end. But I kind of agree with you. Should we just kind of figure out, is he tradable? Number one, because I think the question of Tua being the future guy here, I think it's already answered. I think we're at that point, and I think the organization knows. I think Mike knows. So, would you take that hit, figure out a way to do it, like you said, and just let's pull the Band-Aid off. Let's start right.
Yeah, I think that he's tradable if you're willing to pay some of his salary. If you're willing to share some of the pain, and I really do think that that's where we're at with this situation, that it's not going to be easy, but if you get a new GM and a new coach, I don't think it's fair to tell them Tua is going to be your quarterback your first year, because I don't think they would want that, and I think that it restricts them. You have a injury-prone quarterback who's not mobile, who's chewing up the money is not really a big factor, because, he's going to chew up, whether he's here or whether he's gone, he's going to chew up a lot of money. But I think as far as giving the new GM and the new coach a fresh start, they're probably going to want to bring in their quarterback, give them the best possible start. Now, if they happen to want Tua, okay, that's a different conversation. But, just giving them the best possible chance for success, I think you let them pick their own quarterback. And to me, even if you have a top 5 draft pick next year, force a quarterback on yourself or on anybody else, right? That if the guy is not there, then you draft a left tackle or an edge rusher or a cornerback or whatever, but don't give yourself a bad quarterback that you have to marry for another 3 or 4 years, knowing that he's probably inadequate, right? So give the new GM and the new coach all the best head start you can possibly give them. And to me, that would be selecting their own quarterback.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll quickly, I know we want to pull up some questions here in the chat. Jason's favorite part of that. We let Jason pick out the questions. I want to ask the finger pointing, because it's pretty obvious. The stuff from Pelissaro about, you're hearing about McDaniel doesn't have a quarterback where he can't take a hit, blah, blah. There's obviously some tension there. How strained do you think that relationship is in the finger pointing? Are we making too much of it? But it just seems from the outside that it's not the same.
It's a good question, and the answer is I'm not sure. Here's what I know for sure. This relationship is not where it was in 2022 or 2023. Where they were buddy and they were in sync and they were laughing and joking together. Now you just hear these little comments, this little sniping kind of going back and forth. And so, I don't know exactly where their relationship is. Both of them today said that they're fine, that there's nothing to see here, keep it moving. I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. And then you had the deal last week of Anthony Weaver making a little crack about, I've had coaches meetings where the coaches don't show up. And then he laughs and he goes, I'm just kidding. Tua's our quarterback. I love him. And it's like, where the hell did that come from? Why is Tua catching a stray here? I don't know if that's a lack of respect for Tua. I chose to write it and portray it as maybe that's normality returning to the team where Weaver feels comfortable enough that, I can joke with my quarterback in public, that it's not going to be blown out of proportion. And it hasn't been blown out of proportion, but it's just interesting that he feels that he can make that type of joke amid the kind of sniping that we hear from Tua and McDaniel, that he kind of inserts himself into that. But I don't, that Tua McDaniel relationship, it's not the same as it was. I don't know how strained it is, but they're not the buddy that they were in previous years. That's for sure.
What did you think? I know, Jason, you're going to ask the question, but quickly, we forgot to mention. What did you think of Tua's comments today about the offensive, not being able to see over the offense and defensive line? I had the quote here somewhere. I'm not the tallest guy back there. Sometimes when that happens, you don't want to just throw it blindly. Like, I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or bang my head against the wall when I hear him talk sometimes. Between him and Mike. Look, I respect the honesty, but some things don't need to be said. Your thoughts on that comment, but also Tua in person. You see him a lot.
Yep.
Physically, how does he look this year? And to me, he's a guy kind of trying to find his identity. The tats, the brain. I know he's married now, but it's just, how do you perceive him? You see a guy yearly. You can see it with your eyes. First of all, the comment today, and then kind of your thoughts on Tua as you've seen him this year. So what looks different about him? And then, Jason, we'll get to your chat questions. I promise. Go ahead.
Tua's kind of tone deaf. And so when he makes comments like that, he doesn't
social awareness he doesn't have. I call it that, Bert.
Exactly. You're exactly right, George. He doesn't understand how these things are perceived by the public. And so when he says things, and by the way, that's not the first time that he's talked about how short he is and he has problems seeing. He's made that comment before. But when he says things like that, when he says, show me the money, when he says, these things are not received well. And with the video game, with the kids thing, I think what he meant was, if I have a bad day at the office, I can go home and my kids don't care. That they just want to see daddy and I play with them and it makes me feel better. But that's not what he said, and that's not how it was received. And Tua is so tone deaf that he really doesn't pay attention to stuff outside of that building. It's the building and it's his house. And he's very unaware of how, quote unquote, normal people think. It's why he made the comment about sitting on the couch and eating chips. It's like, Tua, you don't say that to your fans. Like, you don't do that. But these things keep happening with Tua because he's just unaware. I know that people in the building have talked to him about this. I know that for a fact, but it just doesn't sink in. As far as Tua as a person, Tua's cool. I mean, I saw him in the locker room today. I always say what's up and dap him up. He's always hospitable. I like making small talk with Tua. And I've said this before, one of my best memories of Tua is not going to be out on the field. It's going to be a few years ago when he asked us if he should let the Hard Knocks people into his house. And so it was a group of maybe 5 reporters, and we're having this chat with Tua. Or another time when we were just talking about Alabama football. You can have human talks with Tua, and he's really cool, but he's tone deaf of how things come off to fans when he's standing on that podium. I don't know, what it's going to take for him to realize that he's a cool guy, but he needs to just have better awareness.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. Jason, let's pull up some questions. Everybody, we have over 120 people in here. Come on over to YouTube. Make sure you guys smash that like button. We got Chris Perkins in the house talking the Dolphins meltdown. Jason, let's pull up a few questions from the chat.
Let's do it. Our guy Lou from Dade, we appreciate you. Always a fan of the show. We're obviously a fan of your shows with Ash. But 2 weeks we have the trade deadline. Yep. So as Lou wants to know, Perk, when are we going to be sellers to get some kind of draft ammo?
Oh, Lou, what's up, man? Yeah, I've been on Lou's show also with Lou and Ashley.
Lou and Ash are great.
Yeah, they are great. They are great. Here's my thing with that, Lou and George and Jason. I don't know how many tradable assets are on this team. You're not going to trade away Waddle. You're not going to trade away Achane. Bradley Chubb might be near the top of the list. He might be at the top of the list because he has been a Pro Bowl player before. I know he might not be totally over that knee injury. He's got the 4 sacks, but he might be your most tradable asset going to a contender thinking they just need an extra body to help them get over the top. Jalen Phillips is a guy who's coming off of 2 season-ending injuries. He's never been to a Pro Bowl, and he needs a contract. He's playing on his 5th-year option. I don't know how tradable he is. And then the other guys, Minka's not going anywhere. Cater's not going anywhere. Jordan Brooks is not going anywhere. Zach Sealer, Chop Robinson, so I just don't know how many, I've seen people talking about a fire sale and the Dolphins should be sellers at the trade deadline. I'm just not sure how many assets you have. And as far as Jalen Phillips, you might just be ready to see what happens in the offseason because your comp pick for him leaving might be better than what you actually get in trade. I'm not giving any more than a 4th round pick for Jalen Phillips, probably a 5th, because he's got the 2 season-ending injuries and he needs a contract. So I understand where you're coming from, Lou. I'm just not sure how many tradable assets are out there.
Fair enough. So I think this is a good question. Adrian from the Rainy Day Podcast, another friend of the show, one of the best guys out there. He just wants to know, how bad are we going to lose to the Falcons?
Oh, Adrian, I don't know. With Bijan Robinson and Drake London, the potential is there for this to be ugly. I mean, look, it's a road game, which is bad. The Dolphins' offense is just struggling, just absolutely struggling. And I know what we saw against the Chargers, the 4th quarter comeback, but again, you've got HN and you've got Patrick Paul as the constants, and maybe Aaron Brewer. But, it's just tough for this team to get anything going for 2 or 3 straight weeks to where you think, okay, this is more than a flash in the pan. I just don't know how this team is going to win games. Again, special teams errors. The front seven doesn't do anything. It's just hard to see this offense being consistent without Tyreek out there. This game could be ugly. I mean, look, and I've said this about this team. Let me say this. This team does have a good fighting spirit. I don't think they're ever going to quit. The problem is they just aren't very good. And so where does that leave you? That leaves you in a very precarious situation against Atlanta on Sunday. I don't think they win this game.
Yeah. We'll have a final prediction.
Yep.
I just want to ask you something about Ross, because I think everybody wants to know what's going on. The business side's been great. Hey, how much is Garfinkel involved, if you know, on the football side? Because I really don't know. I've heard some things. But like, what is McDaniel, do you think, selling to Chris? I mean, to coach, to the owner, Stephen Ross? Is he saying, all right, I did what you want. I got two. I made him in 2023 an MVP candidate. Let me get my own guy, right? Do you think he's selling that, or we're beyond that point? Chris, I don't know. Chris is a nice guy, but I don't know. I can't give you an answer why. I know people have the theory about the lawsuit and all that stuff. I don't know enough about it to speak on that. But what do you think Mike's selling when he talks to Mr. Ross? Like, what is Ross? Is he in tune with the fan bases? Like, is he very in tune with that? Because I just don't it's beyond me. We asked the question earlier how he doesn't make a move. But I guess, do you think he's kind of saying, well, let me get my own quarterback in here now?
I don't know what is going on with Steve Ross. I really don't. Again, aside from, he likes Mike. He likes the unity that they have in the building. He likes the consistency that he has with a coach in his 4th year. But this thing hasn't worked. You can't be 500 with all this talent that they've had. So I don't think it's a matter of Mike McDaniel selling himself to Steve Ross. I think it's a matter of Steve Ross being overly patient in this situation, because again, I just don't see how you can argue that this thing has been a success. It hasn't. It's a borderline failure. It's mediocrity, personified, and it's going close to failure territory. So I don't even think that Mike McDaniel is sitting there going, Steve, give me one more chance. I know I can do this. I think it's Steve Ross telling himself, I'm going to stick with this guy for another week. And I don't know why he's saying that. Again, aside from he doesn't want to cycle through coaches and he likes the unity that Greer and McDaniel bring him. I'll say this about the Greer role and the lawsuit and all that, and I don't want to get overly political here, but I just don't see one thing that Flo is talking about is racial discrimination. Tone of the times, I don't see a DEI lawsuit working while Trump is in office, and he's got these, he's got his judges, the diversity and equity and inclusion and racial discrimination. It just doesn't seem to be the tone of the times right now. So, I know that some people are saying, well, Ross wants to keep Chris Greer near him so Greer doesn't testify against him. If I'm Steve Ross, get out of my building, get out of my organization. I'll take my chances on this lawsuit, but I don't want you infecting my team anymore.
I mean, we've heard it. A columnist you're friends with.
Yes,
he's
Omar.
Omar's been
say it. Just say it right. Me and
Omar Kelly.
Yes.
He's strong-headed on that. He double, triple, quadruple down on it. Yep. But I think if that's an issue, then there's more problems in this organization than we even thought. Like, I don't think we should be worried about it. I said this. You gotta change the paint in the room. That scouting department needs a fresh idea. Everything just needs to be fresh. And I just don't know if Mr. Ross is going to end up doing that. But who knows?
George mentioned the word paint, and I'm going to paint you a little bit of a hypothetical picture here, Perk.
I like it.
If the Falcons game starts to go south and Tua is taken out and Quinn Ewers comes in, are we setting up to see Quinn Ewers start under the lights Thursday night in the next game on a short week against the Baltimore Ravens? What are the chances?
Oh, I love this question, Jason. So here's my thought on that. It's probably time to find out what you have beyond Tua. And here's why I say that is that, my colleague Dave Hyde wrote a column about Chris Greer asking why is Greer still at the GM? Who's minding the store? Who's looking out for the franchise? And that's kind of where I'm at with Tua from the standpoint that I don't think he's going to be the quarterback next year. I don't think Tua should be the quarterback next year. If you base your stuff, your evaluation on that, find out what you have in Zach Wilson and Quinn Ewers. I don't think that either of them is your next franchise quarterback, but find out if they're a bridge quarterback. I don't think that Quinn Ewers is the next Brock Purdy, but how do you know unless you play him? I don't think that Zach Wilson is going to be your next first-round reclamation project in the form of Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold. But how do you know unless you play him? Find out what you got there, because I think the Tua era, the McDaniel era, the Greer era, those days are done. So mind the franchise, mind the store. Figure out what you have moving forward and kind of go off of that. I know that that's giving up on the season, but aren't we at that stage at 1-6? Aren't we at that stage? So that's kind of where I'm at. I know that neither Quinn Ewers nor Zach Wilson gives you a better chance to win than Tua, but you aren't going to win 10 straight games and go to the playoffs. That's just not going to happen. That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's what I'm banking on. It's time to look to 2026 and beyond. It's time to manage the franchise for the future, not for the 2025 season. That's where I'm at.
A quick little follow-up there. When you look at the record, when you look at 2 games coming up in a short week,
yeah,
it's kind of reminiscent, especially with the quarterback's potential switch of 2021,
yes,
when the Dolphins lost 7 in a row, and then you got Jacoby Brissett in there. And then I was at that game Thursday night, and when Tua came into that game, it was electric.
Yeah,
it was an unbelievable environment, and they ended up whooping the Ravens. Is it crazy to think that maybe Quinn Ewers could do that? Or if he gets benched, Tua comes back in? I mean, to me, there's just a crazy parallel. Do you see any parallel where the next 2 games could spark, like in 2021, a 7-game winning streak to combat that losing streak that they went through?
Jason, I don't know. I don't know anything about this team, but give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Right about how perfect.
Yeah,
Right, get those views up.
Yeah, man, this team is like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what they're going to do next. But I think it's worth a shot. I mean, look, to me, this season is over. It just is. And I know that there's 10 games left and anything can happen. I just don't see the spark. If they had, like, if Tyreek was going to come back, or if you had, a special player that was going to come back, then I would say, yeah, hang in. But like getting Austin Jackson back or James Daniels back or Storm Duck back, that's not going to be enough. It's just not. And so, again, mind the store, mind the franchise, look to the future. Maybe Quinn Ewers can give you a spark. Maybe Zach Wilson can give you a spark. At this point, I mean, look, and I've said I don't think you've hit rock bottom. Maybe if you put Quinn Ewers in, it does get lower. Maybe if you put Zach Wilson in, you do hit rock bottom. But I there's nothing to fear at this point for me.
Is it bad to hit rock bottom? If you're going to, you know what I mean? We don't want to. Here's the worst thing that can happen. They go on a winning streak, win 6-7 games, pick 13th overall. And we're out, So, I mean, we don't ever root for them to lose. But if you look what's best for the future, we didn't do it with Rosen. You wanted the number 1 pick. I'm pretty sure we would have had it if we put Josh Rosen.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly.
I don't know if Quinn Ewers is quite that bad. You talked about the trade deadline. Over under 2 players get traded. You going over or under?
I'm going under. Yeah, I'm going under. I mean, I would say Bradley Chubb, but I don't know who else. Like, who else is desirable?
Quick follow up on that to piggyback off that.
Yep.
Was there any speculation that maybe Zach Wilson could be traded just for like, a conditional 7th pick because he was, replaced by Ewers? Or was it purely performance? Because he, quarterback needy team. Is there any chance that a Zach Wilson could be dealt to a desperate team?
I guess that there's a chance. I quite honestly, Jason, I haven't even thought about that, so I don't know who the possibilities are out there. I guess there's a chance, but boy, if you look at him just being overtaken by Quinn Ewers, I think if I'm another team, I'm thinking it must not be going very well with Zach Wilson. and do you want to bring him in to be your number 2 when he couldn't be the number 2 for the Dolphins? Probably not, but maybe. I mean, maybe some team is looking at their future, bring them in as a number 3 because you don't trust your number 2. I don't know, but I would say that that's highly doubtful to me from where we sit right now.
Fair.
Yeah, I agree. We might have to attach a pick to get rid of.
That's right.
I kind of. Your plan going forward the rest of the season, you kind of mentioned it would be, let's switch to the Ewers thing. Let's get these young guys, because let's be fair, Chris, this team's going to be young next year. They're going to be bad. They're going to be young. It's the right thing to do. And I actually think this draft, I know people are hating on it, but I think if this draft, they can get better. This is kind of a draft that can help you going forward when you build a team. You spent the last 2 drafts at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Grant's got, I think it's too early to evaluate Grant. I think it's too early to give up on Savianaya. I like both of those guys, and I still do. But your plan going forward would be this season is, hey, let's play the young guys, even at quarterback.
Yeah. Let's see, see what you've got out there. And look, next year's team, you're going to have some talent, but again, it's the frontline talent. Your reserves are probably going to be very shaky, but you are going to have Storm Duck and Tater and Minka in the secondary, and you still are going to have Zach Sealer, and you'll still have some other guys on that defense. Offensively, we've gone over, Achane. You're going to have Waddle, you're going to have Patrick Paul, you're going to have Jonah, Aaron Brewer, Austin Jackson, James Daniels. There's going to be some talent to work with next season. Again, your depth is going to be very shaky. It just is until you can replenish it. But you shouldn't be like a 1 or 2 win team next season. Yeah. You should have enough talent that you can still see some kind of hope for the future. Now, the quarterback position, it'll probably be shaky because of what you're looking at right now, especially if you don't bring Tua back. But find out who can play. The rest of this season and next season, find out who can play because if you bring in a new GM and a new coach, to me, you need to get a 3-year plan from them, and not that you're going to hold them to it, but by the 2028 season, new GM and new coach, where do you think you'll be? Will you be in the playoffs? Will you have won a playoff game? How much that you're not going to be in the Super Bowl in 2028, but where do you think you can be and figure out where you are right now, and you do that by evaluating some of the talent that you have. Again, you're not going to be garbage next year, but you're not going to be a playoff team either. Find out who can do what, especially if you have a new system, and then go from there. But you need to be in talent evaluation mode for the rest of this year and next year, to me.
Yeah, you mentioned it, new GM, new coach. Bigger picture here, how far do you think the teardown goes? And if you had to guess in the offseason, and what's the percentage that McDaniel and Greer, either one of them, are back? You got to put a percentage on it next year.
Gosh, neither of them should be back. And you talk about Steve Ross, hearing the fans. My goodness, if you don't hear what the fans are saying now between the banners and the chit chat and all this kind of stuff, you are just totally deaf. Here's another thing. I've got a friend who's a season ticket holder, and he told me in 2024 his seats were $275 each. 2025, they went up to $500 each. He's pissed, as you can imagine. And he told me that season ticket renewals start in about a month. So Steve Ross, what are you going to do? Because I think if you haven't made a change, or if you're not talking change, or if you haven't indicated change, I think those season ticket renewals go down. And we've seen through some of these comments that Steve Ross has put out there that I'm going to be patient unless fans stop showing up. You lose this week, that Baltimore game on Thursday night. That might be when fans continue to not show up, because last game, the Chargers game, you did see some little swaths of 6 to 8 seats that weren't filled. You know, this kind of half the row here and there, and I would only imagine that that's going to get worse if you lose against Atlanta. And at that point, I think Steve Ross has to start paying attention to the financial side of it, with season ticket holders and actual butts in seats and lost sales of merchandise, upset fans, that kind of thing. So, when you talk about, the taking the broom or showing fans that you hear them, Steve Ross, there's got to be some sort of indication that you hear what the fans are saying and that you are going to take some sort of action, just for the sake of keeping your fans, for the sake of showing your fans that you listen to them, and for the sake of, we do want to get this thing turned around, instead of the status quo that you said wouldn't be accepted.
Perk, we're going to get into score predictions and wrap up here for the Falcons. But and I'm no artist, but I'm going to paint one more picture for you.
Yeah.
If they lose the next,
I like it, right?
I'll take one of the earpieces off. But if they lose the next 2 games, you mentioned Steve Ross has not heard the fans. Well, he's going to see something potentially.
Yes.
Bills Mafia overtaking this stadium with red, white, and blue, because they travel well. Miami, South Beach, Miami Garden, whatever you want to call it, South Florida is a destination, right? And you just know that stadium is going to be packed with mafioso. Do you think that could trigger something? If we're talking like 70-30 Bills fans in our house, is that something that could push them over the table?
It is, but I'll tell you this, interestingly enough. So I'll tell you a little Chris Perkins factoid. I've got family in Buffalo. I had a family reunion in Buffalo like in 2010 or something like that. I've got a cousin who now lives in D.C. but used to live in Buffalo. Him and his wife always come down for the Bills game. I hang out with them. We have a great time. He sent me a text a couple of weeks ago, these damn Bills, they're going to blow it again. I might just come down there and watch the game at Duffy's and not even go to the game. Wow. I'm so pissed at the Bills. So I don't know where Bills fans are, but you're right, Jason. If that stadium is overtaken by Bills fans, that has to send a sign to Steve Ross. Or just even if you don't have a big number of Dolphins fans, right, that's got to send a message to Steve Ross that people are fed up. Because throughout this McDaniel era, fans have shown up to games. You guys might remember, might not remember, you might know the 2000 and 2001 playoff games, those home playoff games weren't televised, right?
Yep.
Because the fan, that was back when you had the blackout and you had to sell X amount of tickets by, I think, 4 p.m. on Thursday. Yeah, Publix, you would always hope Publix would buy out the rest of them. But that's, I think we're approaching that level of frustration with this year's fans that they might just say, screw it. I'm so pissed off at this team. I'm not actually going to show up to the game. That would have to get Steve Ross's attention.
Yeah. And the first quick question, the first firing, is it any way it's Greer, not McDaniel? Or do you think if it happens, it's Mike first, right?
I think it's Mike first. Again, I think the Jets were the last team to fire a GM mid-season, and that was like 3-4 years ago or whenever that happened. You just don't really see that, the GM going in mid-season. The GM is usually fired, the day after on Black Monday. It's usually the coach that goes in season and the GM goes after the season. So I would think that Mike McDaniel would be the one to go for. By the way, we haven't talked about the interim head coach problem.
Yes,
right?
I was just waiting. You read my mind, Chris. Just for that.
Go ahead, Perk, and then I have a
Hey, paint a picture for us, Perk.
Yes, yes, 3 times a charm.
I don't know what the hell's going on with Anthony Weaver and this
Yeah,
defense. And, I talked about the front seven and I overrated them. This run defense, it's awful. It's awful, right? And you've got the talent. Our friend Alan Poupart figured out that, Jordan Brooks led the league in tackles 2 weeks ago with 66. 29 of those tackles, 44% came at 8 yards or beyond. That's ridiculous.
This is not Zach Thomas tackles behind the
right. Very good point.
Correct. So, so his status, I know the players like and respect him just for being Anthony Weaver and for being a former player. But man, that defense is way underperformed. So that's Weave. Darrell Bevel was was an interim coach in Seattle and Jacksonville or something like that. Eric Studesville was an interim coach in Denver. John Embry is either the associate head coach or the assistant head coach. Him and Studesville, you guys, they have those titles. Frank Smith, the offensive coordinator, is somebody who has had head coach interviews, but I don't think he's an interim coach candidate. I don't know where they go for the interim head coach. So who thought we'd be in that situation where you don't even know who the interim head coach would be, but here we are. I don't know where they would turn if McDaniel got fired.
Because the so-called interim coach that you want to get a look at, I guess, has been worse than the head coach.
Exactly.
And if you fire Weaver, who do you put as defensive coordinator? There's no one behind Weaver.
You know who I like? Wait, you know who I like? I like that cornerback coach, that young guy.
Oh, Matthew Arujo.
Yeah. I like the way he carries himself. I like the way he speaks. I think that's a featured DC in this league. I like him a lot.
And you guys know Joe Barry, the linebackers coach, has been a defensive coordinator. I think he was in Detroit. I get my teams mixed up. I think he was a defensive coordinator in Detroit. But no, you're right, Jason. There's just so many more questions than answers with this team.
It's the Dolphins. That's all.
Right. You're right, Joe. It's the Dolphins. It's the freaking Dolphins.
Yeah. Oh, but anyways, Jason, we got the game coming up against the Falcons here.
Yeah, let's share everybody up with some predictions.
What did Frank the Tank say? Bijan's going to be gone?
Yeah, you're watching Bijan. He's going to be gone. Exactly.
Yeah. But Jason, score predictions here for the early one. We'll have Saturday in our countdown of games, our final one. But Perk, you got a feeling on this game against the Falcons? You think they're going to score on the ball?
Yeah, I've picked Falcons 28-17, and I'm just not sure that the Dolphins are going to get 2 touchdowns even. I might be overestimating their offense. Maybe they get a special teams touchdown or a defensive touchdown, but man, yeah, I'm going 28-17, and I kind of hope that I'm wrong because at 1-7, it's just absolute misery, more misery, I should say. I hope that I'm wrong, but I just don't see much hope for a victory here.
Sonny, you want me to go first, Jason, or you want to go?
I'll piggyback off that because I think that's a really good score. Not to be, repetitive, I'll go 31-16. But I like that. I like that breakdown.
I'll go. It'll be a clean sweep here. I'm picking against the Dolphins. As much as I cover this team and I try to be, objective, it always hurts a little bit. But I'm going to go 27-17 Falcons. Finn Sammy in the chat. Shout out to Finn Sammy. Dolphins 13. He sees a blowout. Falcons 38. And a special happy birthday to his better half, Lee, if she's watching. Shout out to Lee. Happy birthday. Yeah, the dirty. I got the dirty. Oh, so Lou, we have the same one. 27-17. Every L is a W. I mean, look, it's a way to look at it. Unfortunately, every L is a W, but we'll see. Perk. Wow, we've gone about an hour. Perk, you're one of my favorite guests to come on. I absolutely love to have you on the show, and we got to do it again a few more times. I appreciate it, guys. We'll be back on Saturday. Count on the game day with Curtis, Jason. Sure, you're making another appearance, and we don't know yet, but we're post game. We'll be live no matter what. Right after the game, we ride the wave together. We're all in. We're in this together. It's the only thing we got now. But and we have Costa Dolphins win. We got a Dolphins win 20-23 here. Perk is the man. We appreciate it, guys. Again, stay tuned. We'll be back on Saturday. 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. with Curtis, myself, and Jason. I'll count down the game day, and we're live right after the game. So, Perk, you got to come on over our post-game show. It gets live, man. We got Frank the Tank on all the time. He's wild, man. So,
no, Frank is a live wire. I know that.
Yeah, man. He's good time.
Circuit in the last couple of weeks, too.
Yeah, man. You got to check it out. But we appreciate it. And also, what you got going on the Sun Sentinel this week? What articles you got cooking up? What do you got? I know you had stuff on the quarterback.
Yeah. So here's kind of the journalist dilemma. So I like telling stories about the team on and off the field. I did a Julian Hill feature last week, column about his charity work and how he grew up. Broken home and his mom was on drugs, and he kind of bounced around and all that kind of stuff. But he's a success story. And so, when they were in Carolina, he does a lot of charity work. And so when he does a lot of work with at-risk kids, because that's what he was growing up. So I've got a bunch of stories like that stockpiled. So one story nobody wants to read about that when the team is 1-6. So I'm trying to empty out a lot of these stories that I have backed up. One story that I'll probably write tomorrow, one column, is Benito Jones. He owns a trucking line. He's got like 16, 18 wheelers. Yeah, he's back in Mississippi, so he does logging. And wow. So I want to tell the story. He told me that he's been driving a stick shift truck, standard transmission, since he was 5 or 6 years old. And I was like, there's no way. And he goes, no, I was tall enough. I could see. And so his dad was a trucker. He's got his whole family in the trucking business. And so I talked to him a couple of weeks ago about this. So I'm going to try to write that tonight and get it going. But I've got some other stories just about guys off the field. Jack Jones is a live wire. You guys should hear Jack Jones in the locker room. That everything is the S word or the F word, just casually talking. He's a lot of fun. And I told him I want to do a column, just ask him about certain topics and title it "You Don't Know Jack." And just have Jack Jones go off for me. So I've got a couple of things like that I want to unleash.
I like it. I like
that.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Again, man. Thank you, Chris, so much, and everybody in the chat. Thank you, guys. So many people joined us in the chat. We appreciate it. It makes this show so much funner. Lou, Kotha, Lee, I got to name them all. Rich, Sammy, Beachwave, Adrian. I'm missing some people. Free Geek, True Blake. Everybody. Thank you, CC. Everybody. It makes it so much funner. We appreciate every comment that comes on. I always am mind blown when somebody watches the show. It's crazy. We put a lot of work, but like anybody who spends their time putting their eyes on this one, there's other things to do, especially this team's and that we appreciate it. And we'll see you this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, of course, post game show right after the game. Make sure you guys hit that like, subscribe, put the notifications on so you don't miss when we go live. All right. So for Jason, for Chris Perkins, for myself, stay safe, everybody. Have a great rest of the week. Fins up. We are
Appreciate
out.
you, Perk. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.